Cassandra from CassandraTindall.com, and in today's video we're going to be looking at the upcoming solar eclipse in Gemini at 19 degrees. So before I get started, I just want to take a quick moment and share with you some details around my upcoming course at the end of June. It's the first module of a 2-year program all about the houses. So this is a 5-week training that will guide you through the ways in which astrologers carve up the sky, bring it down to earth, and give it meaning to your life. So in this 5-week training, you're not going to just learn about what the first house means, what the second house means, and the third house means, and simply have to memorize it. What you'll gain out of this course is a training that will help you really understand some of the ancient thought and philosophy around why the houses are the way they are and what they mean, and how you can start to apply this to your own life. So I'm just going to share my screen with you, take you to my website here. So if you just go to CassandraTindall.com, the Learn Astrology tab, and down on courses there. So you'll see some information there, details how to enroll, all the days that the trainings take place. They're live recordings. Of course, I realize schedules and time zones don't always allow to attend the class as it happens. Everyone does get the recording, so you won't miss out. There's also some bonuses that you'll receive upon enrollment. So that is a webinar that I gave earlier this year all about the ascendant, a beginner's astrology workshop. So a little bit of 101 astrology if you're new. And of course, if you are, if you know a bit about astrology already, it will be a great refresher for you, and a published article too. And there's also an early bird rate. So you'll save about, $50 if you enroll prior to the solstice. So I really look forward to seeing you learning all about the houses. So this week, June 10 through all the time zones. So I'll just go through the details with you. So if you're on the east coast of Australia, where I am, you're looking at 8:52 p.m. Wednesday night. If you're on the eastern time zone, New York in the USA, 6:52 a.m. And London, it will be in the middle of the day at 11:52 a.m. So we're having a solar eclipse in the sign of Gemini at 19 degrees. So that's going to be an active point in your own birth chart and in your own house that is ruled by the sign of Gemini. So this eclipse also brings us to the end of the current season of eclipses. So we were introduced to this cycle back in May of 2020 when the nodes shifted from Cancer and Capricorn into Gemini and Sagittarius. Now, the nodes won't change signs to Taurus, Scorpio until early next year, but this will be the final eclipse we will have in the sign of Gemini, or the final solar eclipse we'll have in the sign of Gemini for another 18 to 19 years. So if you can remember what happened 18, 19 years ago, so the last Gemini North Node solar eclipse happened in June 2002. And then we also had a solar eclipse in Gemini in 2011, but that was attached to the South Node. So it was a bit of a different energy around that particular one. But if you can start to sort of think about some events in your life that are linked up around those dates, you might get a little bit of an insight or intuition around what you may expect as a part of this cycle or season. So let's have a look at the actual astrology of this eclipse. So this is set to my own time zone, which is, of course, Brisbane, or affectionately known as Brisvegas if you're local. So we are looking at the 19th degree or the 20th degree of Gemini with Mercury, the eclipse ruler, like super tight with this eclipse. So it is technically within a minute, and that is a special formation that astrologers will refer to as cazimi. I have done a video on cazimi aspects recently, and I'll pop a link up the top for you where you can follow that. And cazimi is a special configuration with Mercury, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So that is sort of the main alignment. We've got Mercury, the ruler of the eclipse, right there with it. And of course, the North Node in Gemini is there. What you might also notice, and a lot of people will instantly look to with this eclipse, is the fact that the eclipse itself, the sun and the moon, is making what we call that applying square to Neptune. And yes, that is a factor. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater here, though I really do feel that there's a lot more juice we can squeeze from this if we do take out this outer planet involvement there. So let's think a little bit about what actually happens when an eclipse, a solar eclipse, takes place. So it's a special kind of new moon. And what happens is that the face of the moon crosses the face of the sun. So the moon temporarily blocks the light of the sun. And so what this does is disrupt that regular rhythm or pattern of that solar light that we are really used to seeing and that we rely on. And so when this happens, it's almost like at some symbolic level, the lunar light takes dominance. So it's that idea that maybe intuition is stronger. Maybe it's the things that become unseen and then revealed again can give us more insight or information or knowledge than what we can see when the light is always there and we kind of take for granted. So there is this kind of idea here that there is a bit more of an instinctual or intuitive or possibly even emotional insight coming through, as opposed to more of that solar or that yang influence coming through. It's almost like this inside knowledge that you might get from within that might speak louder or have more meaning than what you are either taught or told or what is truly visible or logical. This eclipse with Mercury retrograde making that inferior conjunction with the sun really does remind me of an old Sufi tale from a Sufi philosopher called Nasruddin. And the tale goes something along the lines of he loses an object in his home, but he goes outside to look for it in the light. And someone says, hey, why are you looking for this out here? Because you've lost it inside. And then he says, well, there's more light out here. And it makes no practical sense, but it's this idea here that we are searching for some kind of truth or knowledge or information or wisdom, or we're trying to gain something, keeping in mind that this is a North Node eclipse. So it does denote an idea of gain or hunger or this wanting to ingest or take something in. And so the sort of, I guess, the moral of this tale is that we'll often search for truth, not where it is, but where we think we can find it. And that will often be in the most illogical place. Like an example of that in a modern day would be a Google search. We look for something because we think we can find it there. And we may not know what we don't know. So we are looking for things where it's almost like we're looking for a confirmation of a bias that we already have, rather than sort of sitting with ourselves or finding the right insight or the right wisdom from the right source of information. So we search for things and we think we know what we know, or we think we know what we're finding, but in reality, we don't. We don't. Well, sometimes we do, but, I think you get the gist. So when the light of the sun is temporarily blocked out, our main source of light is disrupted, and therefore we have to look somewhere else to find answers or to seek wisdom or knowledge. And so this might mean we have to look elsewhere. So that could be going within, meditating, stillness, doing any other type of eclipse sort of ritual, which usually means not doing much at all, because eclipses are a really great time for sort of rest and cleansing, and not manifesting. It's a real stillness that's invited when we go through eclipses. There's also this idea of seeing something with fresh eyes, looking something with a renewed vision or a renewed perspective or a renewed outlook. So the sun is visible, it becomes invisible, and then it's revealed again. All the while Mercury is being infused by the light of the sun. And so Mercury, if it wasn't in Gemini, would be considered combust in this particular configuration. But because it's in its own sign, it does have some protection or immunity from the sun's rays, technically speaking. So there's this sort of theory that, Mercury can give us something that can only be given from within ourselves. And if you think about what Mercury does in the solar system, it is the only planet in our sky that can get to places of the ecliptic that other planets simply don't reach. So when we think about Mercury or Hermes or Thoth or other, different mythological depictions of Mercury, it's the only body or the only sort of mythological character that can be on Earth, go down to the underworld, and also to the gods in heaven. So it can go all places, just like our minds do, training the monkey mind. We can be, if you've ever tried to meditate, like trying to get your mind still, particularly with someone with Mercury in Gemini, is very, very difficult. So sort of training the mind's thoughts is a real skill and a real wisdom. So when Mercury retrogrades, which it's currently doing, it's really inviting us to call our attention closer. So this is the inferior conjunction. So in terms of Mercury's cycle, it's kind of almost like the idea, I don't want to use the term rock bottom, but it is sort of like the closest or the less freedom that Mercury has to move right now. He's with the king or that solar principle in the sky and gets refused or gets some new information or gets some new clarity or wisdom or insight, and then it can go back, out on its journey. So there's a real invitation here with this eclipse to go right within and listen to your heart. Now, in ancient thought, the heart was considered to be the mind, in the sense that the heart is ruled by the sun, and the sun is the centralizing principle not only of our bodies, like if our heart stops, we die, right? And if the sun no longer shines or, burns out, then life as we know it will also die. So there's this real centralizing force with the sun. And our hearts were considered the mind. And so with this Mercury cazimi, with a North Node eclipse, we're really invited to bring our mind back closer to our heart so we can align what we want and what we're doing and what is truth for us or what is intuition for us, and that we can get a certain kind of congruency of what we think and what we know and what we're doing, a certain coming home, if you like, that our heart and mind can become reconnected. And then we can, as Mercury starts to fade out of the retrograde cycle and start just, going back on his own path again, that we can do that too. So this eclipse really does call for that real coming back to oneself and realigning our mind with our heart and recognize the ways which they may have become a little bit incongruent. That might be through too much social media or too much fragmentation of information or too much on your plate or too many balls in the air and things to juggle. So think about those kind of typical Gemini type of ideas and apply them to your own house topic as well. And that can be really helpful in how you can personalize this particular eclipse. So this reunion of the sun and Mercury also suggests that there's a oneness coming together of a knowing any wondering that you've been doing, like wondering about things, wondering about life, wondering about religion or philosophy, or wondering about, where your next love of your life is coming, or, depending on your house, that Gemini is located. There's this idea that this eclipse can really help you arrive to a solution or find an answer to a problem you've been wondering about or stagnant around. So that's some ideas, and not even looking at Neptune. So I think we can get really deep with when we take out the inner planets and really work with take out the outers and really work with the inners. Now, there's another way we can also look at this eclipse too, and I've taken this from Bernadette Brady's book called The Predictive Astrology, the Eagle and the Lark. If you don't have this book, I really do recommend it for predictive astrology. It's really, really quite helpful. So there's a lot of work in this book around the eclipses and the Saros series. So that's another way we can glean a little bit of insight or intel around what an eclipse could mean. Because of their disruptive nature, they do tend to have a little bit of a maverick behavior about them. But if we do really hone into the houses of our own birth charts, so not only the Gemini, but you'd also be looking at the Sagittarius, because the eclipses do happen in pairs. It can really kind of show you what's been shaken up, what's changing, or where you might need to sort of let some things go in terms of the Sagittarius part of your life to maybe get some gain or clarity or an opening with the Gemini part. So a very unusual Saros series involving sudden flashes of ideas that seem to have a psychic or unconscious flavor to them. Hunches, visions, prophetic dreams are the essence of this family of eclipses. A truly creative series which should leave the individual enriched. The hunches or ideas which come from this eclipse can be acted upon. So again, this sort of also really aligns with the tale of Nasruddin and the idea that through stillness, contemplation, and meditation, you can reveal a truth or an answer that you just couldn't find looking out, like externally or elsewhere. And the fact that it's a North Node eclipse, it does suggest an opening or a potentiality or a catapulting influence that can move you forward in a particular area or topic of your life. So I hope you do find that a little bit of insight to help you really negotiate or figure out what this eclipse could mean for you. To figure out what this eclipse means for you and what you can do to kind of make the most of the energies and what it also suggests for you moving forward. And it's definitely one to really kind of pull your energy within. And if one takeaway from this, I would say, figure out a way that you can no longer feel divided by the thoughts of the mind and what is really true within your heart. Okay, well, until next time, I really look forward to seeing you, and I really hope this eclipse week treats you well. Bye for now.